Welcome to Legally Speaking with me, Tarun Nangia. Chief Justice of India, Justice N.V. Ramanna, has raised an issue which has, in a sense, struck a chord with everyone in the legal fraternity. While talking about the problems faced by the common litigant, he raised a point that judgment should be shorter. Judgment need not be as long, 800,000 pages. If there are shorter judgments, he says in the end, it should benefit the litigant. The litigant gets benefited if you have a shorter judgment. In a sense, we should be very happy. We have a Chief Justice today who talks and thinks about the common litigant. And it's not just this issue. We have seen him time and again on many issues, raising the cause and giving solutions for what the common litigant should get in terms of a service. So we have an eminent panel today to discuss this issue, how we can achieve what the Chief Justice of India has envisioned, any good inputs that may come. And may I introduce you to my panel today. I have with me Justice Arjun Kumar Sikri. Sir has served as the Judge of the Supreme Court of India. Thereon, he is well known as a very leading arbitrator today. And also a judge in the Singapore International Commercial Court. Welcome, sir, to the show.
Thank you.
I have with me Senior Advocate Amit Desai. Many times I feel he needs no introduction. He's all over the press all the times. So, be it industry.
Point out the case he's recently all over the press for.
So, recently, as you all know, he represented Aryan Khan, who's the son of film actor Shah Rukh Khan. But that's not his qualification. He has represented Reliance Industries Chairman Mukesh Ambani, Kumar Mangalam Birla. If I read out the list, it will need another show. So I'll stop at this. I have with me Ryan Karanjawala. He is managing partner of one of India's leading litigation law firms, Karanjawala and Company. I have with me Mahesh Agarwal, who joins us from the United Kingdom. He represents one of India's leading law firms, Agarwal Law Associates. Appreciate you joining us. I have with me Mohit Mathur. So he is a one who's got a lot of people following him, a lot of lawyers who watch him. Whatever he says, they hang on to what he says. So he's very careful with what he says, but he's given us such good statements in the past shows. I'm looking forward to some good intervention from him. He's the chairman of the Delhi High Court Bar Association. Welcome, Mr. Mathur. So let us start our show today with the opening comment from Justice Sikri. Very quickly, sir, in 2 minutes, if you could share with us your opening comment on what Justice Ramanna said.
Yeah, thank you, Tarun. And I think you have raised a very important issue about the writing of judgments which are short and simple. Of course, Chief Justice Ramanna has raised this issue, and therefore it has assumed importance coming from the head of the institution. But this is one issue which all the lawyers here on the panel would vouch for. It has been discussed time and again, and I would say from time immemorial, maybe from at least from 80s onward, when the trend in Supreme Court started of writing long judgments and essays, etc. If I may say so, why he has raised this issue? And if I, as you said, in 2 minutes, if I may say, and give the, we will come to the nuances later, but very simplistic approach and why such a, I mean, there's a necessity for writing such judgments. After all, the courts are meant to decide the cases which come before the court.
Yes.
And when the decision is given, it is given for the two litigants who have come before the court, because they want to see what is decided, whether the case has gone in favor of one party or it has gone in the favor of other party. So they are the most interested parties in the outcome. And if they don't understand what is decided, because they are not interested in long speeches in the judgment, long sermons in the judgment, or jurisprudential aspects discussed in 100, 200 pages. They are ultimately interested in the outcome, whether I have won or whether I have lost. So primarily when the this legal system or the justice delivery system is meant for the litigants, then naturally it calls for, and it becomes itself a reason that the judgments have to be in simple form, short judgments, which they are able to understand. Of course, as I said, that it would be a very simple way of saying so. Why judgments are needed? Judgments are the reasoned decisions to come to a particular conclusion in favor of one party or the other party. It is to tell or the people at large or show the transparency in the system, that if a particular decision is taken by a judge, he is giving or she is giving the reasons in support of that also, that why such a conclusion is arrived at. So it amounts to, in a way, I would say that a transparency is brought. But then it has some other purposes also. Yes, for the parties it is there. But at the same time, if suppose judgment is given by the trial court, there may be, there are ladders of appeals, etc. Then the judgment would be required by the appellate court also when the decision is challenged as to what were the reasons and whether those reasons were valid or not. So judgment becomes important for the appellate court as well. And if the judgment is of the High Court and the Supreme Court, it is then not only for that what kind of law is laid down and which in a way regulates the course of conduct in the society, it becomes important for the society as well, and for the legal system, for the subordinate courts, because law declared by the High Court is binding on all the subordinate courts in that state, and law declared by the Supreme Court is binding on all the courts. So therefore, these are the other reasons for which the judgments are needed. But at the same time, and those would be the other nuances to which we'll come to, and why sometimes the dilemma which is faced by the court, and why it can't be in all the cases. It can't be a judgment which is very short and where some other aspects are required. We'll come to that. But primarily, this was the reason. This is what the Chief Justice said, that look, in our country, the system which is geared up to do justice to the society and for the litigant, and they may be from rural area, they may be from other areas, so they should understand what is happening for them. So that was the reason for initiating this debate.
Point very well taken, sir. I go to Senior Advocate Amit Desai. Now you've got this unique thing that you do a lot of commercial matters where you represent industry. In those matters also we see longer judgments. In a sense, do you think what the Chief Justice of India said is applicable to all? And what did you think of the comment that our Chief Justice made?
Arun, thank you once again for having me on your show. As Justice Sikri rightly pointed out, I think this is a debate that's been going on since the last probably 4 or 5 decades. It's been a regular struggle for everybody, I think, on the bench and the bar to try and achieve this objective. As Justice Sikri says, ultimately, the judgment is really for the benefit of the litigant, unless it's a judgment of the Supreme Court or the High Court, where it's obviously for the benefit of the state or the country as a whole. And I think we've always struggled and maybe the starting point is a problem with the bar, because the first principles of any judgment is brevity, simplicity, and clarity. And these are obvious principles, and I very recently sort of was taken back down memory lane when in the recent judgment of the Supreme Court in Ajit Mohan was a reference to Renin Martin. Now, Renin Martin is the textbook on English grammar and Plessy writing, which we all actually grew up with. And I don't even know whether the current generation knows anything about Renin Martin, but it was obviously something that struck a chord with all of us as to how even the Supreme Court is trying to remind all of us that what is important is Plessy writing. And that goes to the pleadings to start with, because that's where the facts are articulated for a judge to really understand the issues before it, and maybe to some extent articulate the legal issues that will come out of the factual issues that need to be appreciated. And so probably this is a problem that needs to be dealt with at several levels. And as Justice Sikri said, it also depends on who is writing the judgment and at what level. So when you are at the original court, which is your trial court, which appreciates the primary evidence that's being led before it, then the manner in which that judgment is written is entirely different from the way in which a judgment of the Supreme Court or the High Court would be written, because that is where it's the duty of the trial court to really digest every aspect of the evidence that's led before him, and then apply the law to those facts and appreciate the evidence. So there is levels, and then the writing styles will differ at different levels. So, I mean, undoubtedly, this is a debate which actually must now move forward and not remain as a debate. I think something more constructive needs to be done. And I'm sure that on this show with this debate, there'll be a lot of ideas that really need to be moved. And I think there are lots of ideas that have been discussed for the last 4 or 5 decades, but it's a question of now, how do you start taking those and implementing them? And I think that's really where when Chief Justice Ramanna has once again raised this and brought this to the fore, it's also because of the problems of the delays in the justice system. And it's really a real burden on the system, because every time you write prolix judgments, it actually adds to the delay to the justice system. And I think I'm extremely happy to hear that once again, this effort is on. And I think this time round, we've all had 2 years of introspection as lawyers in the pandemic. We need to do a lot more for the system and make sure that something more constructive is done as a sort of a collaborative effort from all of us together. So obviously there are ways in which to do it. It's how you do your pleadings, how you file your arguments, your written notes of arguments. And I think that's going to help the judges, because otherwise the burden on the judges is enormous. It's unimaginable. I mean, we sit here on this side and sit here and think that we've got, friends of Ryan and Mukul, Mahesh. Mukul will have 20, 25 SLPs a day, but you have to remember that the learned judge is sitting with 100. So, we think that we are doing a lot of work, but I think when you look at what the burden up there is, so I think we have to help the system. We have to support the system. We have to help the judges a lot more. But as we go on into the debate, more on that as we discuss it.
You made a very interesting point. The pleadings have to also be shorter. The supporting documents also have to be shorter. I'll take that point to Mr. Karanjawala. What do you think on that? And also the comment that our Chief Justice made.
So first, let me deal with the comment that the Chief Justice made. I think it was time that such a comment was made, and that too by the head of the institution. Because over the years, as Justice Sikri said, from 80s onwards, we seem to have been moving into a decade or an era where judges just choose to quote more and more judgments and put them all together in one melting pot, you see. And this obviously makes for difficulty in the enunciation of the law, in the articulation of the law, in the clarity of the law. So it's high time that such a comment was made. It's high time that such a comment was implemented. Now, I'll give you 2 perspectives. This prolixity is not something common only to India. Even in the United States, in the 80s, the average median word length of a judgment was about 2,000. Today, it's about 8,000. But just to give you a contrast, let me say, that famous case which everyone knows, all the lawyers know, Marbury versus Madison, which explained the doctrine of judicial review, was 18 pages. The case of Texas versus Johnson, which is on free speech and the right to burn the American flag as part of free speech, was down to 43 pages. And now to just give you however, despite the fact that the American Supreme Court and all have also started writing more prolix judgments, let me just give you a contrast. The judgment on decriminalizing sodomy in the state of Texas, which is called Lawrence versus Texas, was 49 pages. In the Indian court, it was 493. So that gives you the contrast and the juxtaposition to understand as to why Justice Ramanna made the comment that he did. It's high time such a thing was followed. There is, however, one exception to that rule, which I will come to and explain later as the debate goes on, because this is a debate which is going to take 2 parts running into almost a full hour. So everyone will have a chance to sort of deal with the different nuances. So I'll deal with that later.
Point. I'll go to Mr. Mahesh Agarwal. Now, specifically on the pleadings, you see so many files being lugged into the court, sometimes in a tempo, and you're aware of it. Do you think it's both ends that need to solve the issues? The pleadings also have to be shorter. And what do you think of comments made by the Chief Justice?
So I think the comment is well taken. And the comment is directed not just towards the judges, but I think equally towards the lawyers. Ultimately, lawyers become judges. What happens in the court is a simple issue which can be concluded in 15 minutes. There are lawyers who are arguing for 3 days, 4 days, 5 days. They're endless. There is no time limit fixed on arguments. Pleadings is one part. But if a matter is argued for days together, you cannot expect the judgment to be 10 pages, because the first ground of appeal will be that I argued 100 points, they have not been considered. There has to be a restriction on pleadings and more so on arguments. The lawyers who are appearing in the court have to focus on the issues that arise, the arguments, pros and cons, and finally the conclusion. What happens is the judges are misdirected into irrelevant points, irrelevant issues, and therefore the judgments become too long to comprehend. What happens as a result is judgments sometimes are not intelligible. You don't understand what is the issue to be decided and what is the conclusion. All those three issues are missing. So there has to be a partnership a constructive partnership between the lawyers and judges to achieve this objective, which has been laid down by Honorable the Chief Justice.
I have with me Senior Advocate Mohit Mathur. Mr. Mathur, you represent a lawyer with a very fledgling practice. You also represent lawyers with multi-million dollars worth of practice in the Delhi High Court, because you happen to be the chairman of the association, the Bar Association. How is this comment applicable to every lawyer and also the judge? What did you feel after you heard our Chief Justice, Justice Ramanna, talking of shorter judgments?
Thank you, Tarun, for inviting me here today. First thing, I must say that what Justice Ramanna said has to be seen in the perspective in which he said. He, in fact, talked about that the legal system has to be more Indianized.
Indeed.
It was in that perspective that he spoke about the judgments to be shorter so that they are intelligible to the layman. Now, Mr. Desai rightly pointed out, it was only about 3 months back that this judgment of Ajit Mohan had come, where 3 judges of the Supreme Court talked about Renan Martin and Pressy writing. And it's in the wake of these comments, I was only thinking that actually the problem lies in our education system, where we somehow feel that if you write more, you are writing better. So the same thing creeps in our practice as lawyers, that if our pleading is heavier, with no offense meant to the solicitors here, both are respected people. If the brief is thicker, then I have a meatier case and my client is going to pay me more. If I am going to argue more, I have a better case. So the same thing then creeps into the judges, that if they write longer judgments, it is somehow very good. But what is actually happening is the substance is the same, but it is stretched with repetitive case laws of the previous cases, which makes it confusing and convoluted and more lawyer-friendly than the layman-friendly.
Yes.
Because if you are not able to discern from the judgment, what is it actually for? What does it actually say? Then the layman cannot use it to its own benefit or to understand intelligently what is that judgment about. Now, there is also a feeling sometimes that we get as lawyers, and I speak for a large number of lawyers, say that without meaning any disrespect to our bench, that lengthier judgments are being only written to somehow shroud and cover and mask the shallowness of the jurisprudential depth. Because what they are doing is they are borrowing the previous judgments and writing it. And after 5-10 pages of the arguments of each side, then 20 pages of only cut, copy, paste, and then the actual substratum of the case is only in 2 paragraphs. And somehow, when you had asked me about this, I tried to dig deep and find out, barring the Constitution bench judgments earlier, we never used to have lengthy judgments. And Keshwananda Bharti was probably the peak of it. Till today, I really feel, despite reading it several times, I have not been able to discern what the 9 judgments were about. So repetitive and all talking different things, and ultimately the crux is the same, which is repeated in every judgment, that Keshwananda Bharti says you cannot amend the basic structure of the constitution. So ultimately, what Justice Ramanna has said is what Justice Sikri, Mr. Desai, Mr. Agarwal, and Mr. Karanjwala all have said, and I am sure others also would be voicing the same opinion, that these lengthy judgments do not help the cause. And the cause of justice in India also has to be seen in the backdrop of the peculiar Indian situation. And that is when you have so much pending work. What you can write in 5 pages, why do you have to dictate 50 pages? Merely to show your prowess, merely to show your intellect, or what? We are not here to prove a point. You have to dispense justice. And both the bench and the bar, as rightly observed, have to cooperate in it. And to cooperate in it, you have to somehow make it short, crisp, and clear. Now, if you want to just drag on to the issue, then obviously there is no answer. But then repetitiveness has to be removed so that the layman can understand. The judgments have to be to the point, as rightly pointed out by Justice Sikri also, that what does the man want? The 2 people who are contesting are not interested in whether the entire world is helped or not. Does it help their cause is what they are interested in. So there has to be, and it has to flow from the top. The Supreme Court has to come down heavily in stopping itself from writing number of judgments and lengthy judgments, one after the other, repeating the same thing. If we are repeating one judgment, I was just once in another program I was discussing, they were asking which are the very influencing judgments. Very strangely, a recent judgment of Gyan Singh, which is nothing except the power of 482 to quash the proceedings, is the second most quoted judgment. It is actually a very, very small, innocuous point. But why should it be quoted every now and then? Why should it become a compendium of all the case laws before it? And it becomes more like basically a kunji, a key for the lawyer. You just open that judgment and you will see all the judgments of the past from it. But that's not the purpose. As rightly said by the speakers before me, the lawyer is not helped. The litigant is not helped. The bench has to restrict its verbiage in the judgments. It has to restrict itself to the issues involved. And what happens is that it only opens a Pandora's box of arbiters and opens a Pandora's box of starting a new dispute with that judgment, because there will be one line. When you write 10 things, you are likely to make a mistake by adding something new, which is neither in the issue nor in the dispute, but now you have added it. It will open the Pandora's box for a new dispute. So what I feel is, as rightly said by the others, we all have to cooperate in this effort, but then the effort has to come from the top. Don't ask the lawyers alone to be restrictive in their arguments. Don't ask the lawyers alone to be restrictive in their pleadings, because they want to only express themselves as the best whatever they can. So once the lines are drawn and a streamlined system is drawn by the Supreme Court and the high courts, the constitutional courts, then obviously everything will follow in place. Because I remember, and the other seniors definitely would, Justice Venkatachalaya, in his when we had joined the bar, in constitution bench matters, he would ask the counsels in advance and give them slots. And everyone had to give in advance their written notes so that it restricts the argument. Now, if you see the Ayodhya case or the other cases of constitution benches, each one goes into 14, 15 hearings. And Ayodhya case went into 40 hearings, which is reported to be the second longest hearing in India, in the Supreme Court. If you have 40 hearings, obviously minimum those many pages will come.
Point very well taken. And as usual, you could see Mr. Mohit Mathur very frank, but it helps the cause because he doesn't hold back. He shares what needs to be known and what is the voice of lawyers in Delhi. I'll go to Justice Sikri, sir, for the fact that our Chief Justice himself had to make this statement. And we recently saw judges of the Supreme Court discussing a High Court judgment and commenting that they couldn't understand what was written. But that's a different issue. But I mean, they said that we can't make out what is written in this. So keeping also that comment in mind, would you like to, sir, share with us, why do you think the Chief Justice of India had to make this comment? Not some Chief Justice of a High Court. The Chief Justice of India is saying this.
I think some of these aspects we have already discussed. But let me tell you and start with this, that judgment writing, and I'm saying from my experience as a judge for 20 years, and even now in some capacity writing judgments, although in the form of awards as an arbitrator or sitting in Singapore International Commercial Court, judgments there. But judgment writing is an art, and it is science as well. Now, therefore, judge has to be perfected in this art. I don't know whether I should say it or not. Okay, I'll disclose it if you want. Immediately after my retirement, I had gone to Mr. Arun Jaitley because he was not well at that time. It may be within 2 or 3 months thereafter. So I had gone just to meet him, and he told me that you will be doing a good service if you write a book on how to write judgments. Because, and we discussed so many, lapses or so many deficiencies which crop in writing these judgments. And as all of us have deliberated on that in one sense or the other. And let me tell you another thing, that in judicial, we have judicial academies, the State Judicial Academy, we have National Judicial Academy, where the training is imparted. In State Judicial Academy, training is imparted to the judges. And normally, there is some training program on writing judgments as well, where I have, gone to these State Judicial Academies number of times and have given, and in National Judicial Academy, where even the High Court judges come for this purpose. Of course, there we don't say that we are telling you how to write judgments, but then it's a mutual discussion which takes place, and on that basis. But then, if I may say so, what normally we feel, and which I have said a number of times, that what are the signs of a bad judgment? It is, I would say, which lacks in candor, which lacks in correctness. There's a lack of correctness. There's overuse of jargons. These are some of the mistakes which we find. Then lack of economy of expression, as Mohit said so, in if you can write one thing in 2 or 3 pages, why you should need 20 or 30 or 40 pages. So lack of economy of expression, where there's a tendency to overkill, and in the process, there's a tendency to be repetitive. There's a clutter of citations, which again Mohit had mentioned, and giving so many quotations, and there's sometimes we have said judicial prose also. Some of the, if you see recent judgment of some of the judges of the various high courts, where the kind of the tendency to overkill, which I have said. So therefore, these are some of the aspects which have to be kept in mind and which have to be avoided. And what is to be done, of course, we can say thereon as well. But at the question which you asked, that why Chief Justice had to say this, and as I pointed out, and the earlier speakers have all covered that in a way, the dilemma which is faced. On the one hand, we know the judgment is needed for the parties. They are interested in the outcome. They are not interested in big speeches which are given or delivered in that judgment, and it is meant for their consumption primarily. But at the same time, yeah, it is relevant for the appellate court also, and it is and of judgment of the high courts, which is relevant as precedent as well. So it would depend upon who is writing the judgment. But even the appellate courts, a high court or Supreme Court, that doesn't mean that if suppose there is, as one example given by Mr. Mohit was on section 482 and Gyan Singh judgment, when the law is so clear, then you can say that in 2 sentences that this is now the authoritative position, that this is the law. Then instead of then repeating that again in 20 pages, which is already stated in so many judgments again. So which is need not be. And at the most, then you say, okay, refer so and so, and just give the citations. Simple, 2 lines, my conclusion, which is the proposition of law. So this is also a way of writing the judgment and art of judgment. Now the dilemma, which is on the one hand, we have this, and which is pointed out by all the speakers, is that when the lawyers arguing so much now with you have SCC online on a click of button, when you can on one proposition you can find 50 judgments, you want to quote each and every judgment. You want to argue even when the point is well settled before the court for 30 days or 3 or 4 days, when you can argue it in 15 minutes, as Mahesh Agrawal also pointed out. But when all that is placed before the judge, and if the judge doesn't deal with that, if it is a trial court judge doesn't deal with that, that would be one argument in the appellate court, look, my XYZ arguments are not met. Even if it is the judgment of the High Court or the Supreme Court, review can be filed, and there can be a criticism of the judgment that, look, why this conclusion is there when had these arguments of mine been also dealt with, maybe the conclusion would have been different. So it is deliberately to give this particular conclusion, the judge has avoided discussion on other issues. So sometimes there are, limitations, or there are challenges also because of all these reasons. But as I said, it is an art, and it can still be tackled. I gave you the example that, okay, you give the conclusion, which is their ratio of all those judgment, and then just refer judgment instead of quoting from all those cases. But yes, there's some kind of, reforms which are not needed only at judicial level, but the advocates also need to set their house right in this sense, and how to argue, because particularly when it comes to the High Court and Supreme Court and commercial matters, etc., where the stakes are very high, constitutional matters where the stakes are high in the form of the issue which involves has a high, or a great impact which is going to be on the society, as we know the kind of issues which are coming. And of course, at the same time, I would say, is it still necessary for the judges, I'm not talking of High Court and Supreme Court and constitutional matters also, that to then give the entire jurisprudence, then why not better write a book or write some articles on that instead of saying it? But having said so, let me tell you, sometimes it becomes important going by the importance of the issue. But those exceptions apart, those may be exceptional cases which may seldom come. And most of the cases, day-to-day work is such that if we adopt some techniques and some proper methodology, I think this judges can come out with the product which is simple enough, and which carries the message also, which takes care of all the arguments as well. And at the same time, it is understandable by the parties, and it is not too long as well. But it is an art which is to be learned, and it is very necessary.
We saw Justice Sikri sharing with us that judgment writing in itself is an art, and not all judges necessarily may have it in that very, that very peak. And he said that a lot of discussions also yield to results where judges also learn and how to get better at writing. And it is very interesting that this demand for shorter judgments has not come from the bar. The lawyers have not asked for it. Our Chief Justice has asked for it. So the bench is initiating this reform. That is very interesting. This I'll delve into the issue of shorter arguments and the initiation from the bench, not the bar, in the part 2 of our episode on Chief Justice of India, Justice N.V. Ramanna's comment on writing shorter judgments. But that's it for now. In part 1, I would like to thank Justice Sikri, Senior Advocate Amit Desai, Mr. Ryan Karanjawala, Mr. Mahesh Agrawal, Senior Advocate Mohit Mathur for sparing time and joining us on the part 1 of this show. See you in part 2 soon.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.